Working a long, I'm not very efficient, but we're working long hours, if that makes up where.
Well, that's what I was going to say about how often are you on the road, and
Well,
this is
we,
pretty strenuous.
yeah.
That you haven't done it in a while, I'm sure.
No, but we have been to probably 55 counties, maybe, Barbara and I have. And the late Tip O'Neill used to say that all politics is local. We think most politics is personal. And so we like to ask people for their vote for our son. And we started this off when he was still in session up in Washington. And we were trying to cover ground that he couldn't make, events that he couldn't go to because he was in Washington. So we were his surrogates and his substitutes, and we've been quite just about to every section and corner of the state. And we've had a good time.
I guess you're getting to visit with a lot of old friends.
Yeah.
Drop some names for some of the maybe
well,
statewide people that some of the old timers especially would know.
Even some of the old timers, I'll mention one is John Paul Hammersmith. That shows you that Democrats and Republicans can get along. And when we were in Harrison some weeks ago, we went by to see John Paul. He was laid up. He had an injury. He had fallen. And we spent about an hour at his home with him and had a good time, talked about old times the three of us did together. And so that's just one, but I've been by to see Dale Bumpers just on Saturday. He's actually living in Little Rock, but we went out to see him. And I don't know if President Clinton got to go back and see him yesterday, late afternoon. I'm not certain. He was wanting to. I don't know if he had a chance to. But we've seen people all over the state, folks who we'd served in the legislature with, and people of all walks of life who we've seen that we've not seen in a long time. So it's really been a great opportunity for us.
What has been some of the feedback that you've been getting, not only from fellow Democrats, but independents even?
I think people want to see the Congress return to a more, I guess you would say, a more civil union, because right now there's a toxic fog of poison that hangs over Washington right now, and people don't understand it, they don't appreciate it. They remember the times when Democrats and Republicans not only got together but worked together. My gosh, we wouldn't have had the GI Bill of Rights, we wouldn't have had Medicare, we wouldn't have had the Eisenhower interstate system, transportation system. We would have had none of those things. And Social Security, even, I will include that at the top of the list, had not there been cooperation between Democrats and Republicans. And it's just necessary for our system to do this, and to work together. And it seems like today that so many people are doing everything they can to drive the wedges between the two political parties and the individuals who make up those political parties. And it's time now, as we say, to find common ground and come together and work together for those issues. And so people want us to work together. They can't understand why people don't work together and work on common solutions, because that's what it's going to take. You take with Syria, you take with ISIS, you take with everything, whether it's international affairs, foreign relations, military issues, domestic concerns. It's going to take a great deal of cooperation and working across party lines to make things work again. And right now we're in paralysis.
Well, I think that one of the great things about our state is that Governor Beebe and a Republican legislature worked together and modified our health care program.
That's right.
And for the first time ever, we have 200,000 people in this state that have never had insurance. And as we travel around to some of the smaller counties and towns, they are so grateful because those small rural hospitals and the clinics and all of the healthcare places are thrilled because for the first time people can pay for their health care. I think it's a big thing for us to have that break.
This is going to save, for example, I'll start with the biggest, UAMS in Little Rock, Arkansas, University of Arkansas Medical Science Hospital. It's going to save our hospital. It's going to save rural hospitals across our state. And also, for the first time, women are not having to pay more for health care than men. They're getting mammograms, and they can carry their dependents till they're 26 years of age. You know, pre-existing conditions no longer apply and keep people out of the clinics any longer. And this is a great march forward, and Barbara has praised Governor Beebe, his ability to get the Republican leadership in the state legislature to work through this private option challenge that we've had, and they've been very successful in making it work.
It really is a prime example of how we can get things
That's
done
right.
when we work together.
That's right.
Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, if we work together, I think we can change the world.
Now, you were talking about a book you wrote. Is this a new book? When did it?
2008 or 9, I believe, I wrote this book. It's called A Prior Commitment, and that came from an old campaign button we used to use in earlier campaigns. We'd give buttons out that said I have a prior commitment.
Okay.
So the publisher of this book says, let's build the title of this book to say A Prior Commitment. That was the name, or is the name of the book that I wrote. And it's just the story of our political lives across Arkansas, and it was a lot of fun to write it. I don't want to write another book anytime
Well, I was
soon.
going to ask
It
if
takes
you were
a-
going to add some chapters. What would they be about?
It takes a lot. I think if I were going to add any chapters, I would just do one final chapter, and I would do nothing except take about 100 of the great characters, the greatest characters I've met across the country, across the state, and write stories about these folks. Because Arkansas has some great characters.